Hey guys, welcome to FPG. Today is something special for me because the Tyranids were basically my first link to the 40k universe because of my love to the Zerg and the Alien franchises. I'm a big fan of Alien as well as the Zerg, Starcraft, all of that stuff. I'm a big fan, and the Tyranids piqued my interest whenever I looked first at them. That drew me into the 40k universe with all the videos to follow and all the stuff going on. So without further ado, today we're going to take a look at the First Contact, Tyranids, and the Battle of Macragge. And as always, there's only war. Tyranids are creatures from our darkest nightmares, but remember this, they can bleed and they can die. Inquisitor Cryptman. Nice. Nice message. They will surely win. Surely. Ooh. Very nice scene. Let's go. Where we at? Transmissions. Planet Tyran. Suspicious name.
The Imperium of Man first made contact with a new Xenos species at the planet of Tyran. Imperial explorators, who are Mechanicus tech priests committed to exploration and exploitation of new planets and regions in the galaxy in the name of the Imperium, discovered a strange phenomena where planets previously recorded as lush and verdant were now barren husks.
Ooh.
Not even a single cell of life remained. While this disturbing fact was immediately reported, the slow-turning cogs of the Imperium's bureaucracy was, as with most things, likely to raise not much more of an interest than the lift of an eyebrow. Stranger and more deadly things are likely occurring at almost any time than a planet simply just becoming a dead rock. Still, as the explorators would continue to report these strange dead worlds, a fleet of Xenos previously unrecorded would be drawing ever closer.
Oh. It looks like a Leviathan from Starcraft. I like it.
A survey craft returning from studying these destroyed worlds encountered a strange cloud of unidentified objects entering the edge of the system. After taking some damage from strange organic mines in the edge of this cloud, the Imperial ship would manage to survive back to an Imperial base orbiting Tyran Primus with the disturbing reports.
Hell yeah.
Days later, the Xenos fleet would now descend from the skies down to the surface of Tyran Primus.
Ooh, they also got those
capsules. The main base on Tyran was a heavily fortified bunker system designed to withstand the ferocious storms of the ocean world. Coupled with the fact that its location on the edge of Imperial territory made it a likely target for Xenos attacks. So 4 immense planetary defense lasers were situated on the outpost, along with void shield generators, which are a form of gravitic energy field. It is typically utilized to defend super heavy vehicles and infrastructure, often used by starships and titans in the Imperium. Void shields displace ranged attacks by distorting space-time around the point of impact.
What the fuck?
The outpost was then further supported by an array of other weapon systems, including autocannon and las cannon, as well as various heavy bastions and bunkers.
That sounds super
The defense
advanced.
complement itself was also formidable, with 3 full Navy wings and a force of Skitarii, as well as finally an entire infantry regiment of Imperial Guard.
Was that on the height of their technology, or, later when they already lost? Because that sounds pretty insane and advanced. I don't know the exact time period, I'm still not that deep in the universe that I just see a number and can say, yeah, that is that. It's a little harsh for me. So was that on the height of their, technological advancement and stuff, or was that after, when they lost most of it and have now want to recover it and everything like that?
Standard deployment for any frontier planet that had been deemed the standardized force strong enough to repel most enemy assaults.
Oh,
The alien horrors began to fall from the skies in an array of colours and strange storm-racked skies.
Looks so
The Imperial
cool.
ground gunners attempted to engage and prevent any of the invaders from making planetfall. But just as suddenly as they'd begun, this attack from the strange unseen species would withdraw. Is this all they have? What an easy victory, mused the Imperial defenders.
Yes,
This
surely.
ignorant overconfidence
Easy
would soon
victory.
be tragically misplaced. Major Varnak ordered a
Clueless.
fleet of Imperial Navy cruisers to continue to harass the withdrawing Xenos as to make sure of their retreat and assumed broken morale.
Completely clueless.
But upon following this command, the Imperial ships would quickly discover, as they pushed through the spore mine clouds that masked the Xenos fleet, they would see not a few, not even 100 of the strange bioships, but in fact thousands.
It looks
Having
so
suffered
cool.
minimal, if any, losses from the initial planetary engagement, swarms of Xenos ships.
I don't know. I don't think even all the models can do them justice, because it's organic. It's different to if you make a model or stuff of a ship, because it's basically metal. You can make it very look-alike. But this is all bio stuff, the tentacles, everything like that. They have a special vibe to them. I've seen really great stuff, but I think this is maybe one of the hardest to capture in model form or statue form, because it's just, it's bioships, it's everything like that. It's a lot harder than clean metal and, big robots, stuff like that. It's way harder to make them realistic and feel right, I think that's a pretty rough run always with those. It is a lot easier, to paint something like that in a game or in a movie where you have basically every technique to bring them alive as much as possible.
Would seize upon these easily stunned
But I love the
prey
design.
as they rounded on the Imperial ships. The
So
first
cool.
to be physically shredded was the Emperor's Fist, ripped apart by small invasive organisms spewed forth from a larger alien vessel. As the others were similarly cut to pieces or ripped apart by tendrils, the now absolutely panic-wrought crew in the last surviving ship
Doesn't
were
look that
able to
small.
dispatch a warning to Tyran. While in the process of doing so, Genestealers had been unleashed into the ship's interior, efficiently and brutally slaughtering the entire crew complement in minutes.
I heard of Genestealers. I don't yet get their full expanse, what is their real deal and stuff like that. I know they're infiltrating and stuff like this, but I don't know what is really up with them, so I hope we will learn a little bit more about Genestealer cults and stuff like that here.
While in the background, other ships
pretty clueless
were already being absorbed into the fleet's bioreserves.
Such a symphony
Xenos
designs.
would now return to the orbit of Tyran, and there would be no respite this time, no withdrawal. Many thousands of their mycetic spores rained down to the planet's surface, with the Imperial outpost defences having little success in preventing them from doing so. As the ocean around the outpost began to foam and boil, the Imperial defenders looked on baffled and more than a little concerned. What kind of horror was this attack? Soon enough their answer is returned.
Do they have something like the Zerg, spores? Or like with the Zerg, the landings capsule come down and they change the soil a little bit. They make basically the room for them better, optimized for their kind. Or is it just, normal landing vessels? They're just landing, they're just going ham there. No idea, but it would be interesting to know.
As aliens the likes of which had never been seen before sprang from the watery gestation. Imperial Guard would quickly turn to their instinctive training and even were successful in repelling the first waves of attack by these savage alien creatures. No doubt bolstered by the fact that among their number were Guard veterans from the Imperial death world of Katashan, a nightmarish jungle planet. The lower bioforms of the attacking Xenos were little match for most standard Imperial weaponry, and the Gaunts and Genestealers would be significantly decimated. Things, though, began to quickly unravel as one of their planetary defense lasers would fall silent. It was literally choked and clogged by a mass of Xenos gargoyles that had been instructed from the hive mind to force themselves down into its barrel and inner workings. Now the larger bioforms like Carnifexes would begin to appear, ripping through defences and destroying further weapon installations.
That's so cool.
The Xenos were turning the tables, and it was now only a matter of time before the guardsmen would be horribly dismembered and then consumed. The outpost soon...
Do the Tyranids have something like ultralisks? I guess. I think I saw something very giant. A very giant Tyranid, but I don't know what it is. It kind of looked not really like a crab, but I think it walked on 4 legs. I'm not sure. There must be some giant monstrosity. And it looked super cool, but I don't know what it is.
Soon is overrun by the alien horrors, and its heavy bastions and bunkers smashed to pieces or enveloped by this highly aggressive Xenos. Only Tyrann's command bunker remained, and it was already beginning to buckle and crack under the weight of unrelenting damage being wrought to its exterior by huge aliens smashing their way inside. Major Varnak saw there was no hope. This was the end.
Flee, you fool. Flee.
The few remaining Imperial Guard in Skitarii would fight down to their very flesh and bone before these savage invaders would seethe and flow through the command bunker's corridors. Major Varnak would pray to his Omnissiah before sending a data codex deep into the lowest levels, specially constructed as a kind of black box for the outpost. This data would be their legacy to the Imperium of Man, its records providing essential information for the Imperium and humanity.
That's cool. So they have some kind of black box going on to be collected and to share the data, information, and grow. And yeah, that's a pretty good plan, I would say. Also, is there that same kind of vibe going on like with the Zerg? You know, consuming essence, consuming biomass. Obviously, I think I saw that in another video. But are they always chasing for the next best evolution to bring themselves ahead with their strive to just evolve, become better, optimized? Is that what they're going for? Because what I heard, they're pretty, not like in Starcraft where you have the overmind created by the Xel'Naga, basically, which got then his own conscience, severed itself from their gods, killed the gods, everything like this. Not all of them, but, their fleet and stuff like this. Or is it more like just a primal instinct to evolve, not really their mission? I think nobody knows for the Tyranids what is their mission. I heard it's pretty primal. Sadly, there's not, I know a lot of people like it. Some people said, it's not really my kind of thing. It's a bit sad that humanity for the first time seems super interesting, and something like the Tyranids don't have, because they don't have inner politics, because they don't have, largely reported history, it is harder to not root for them, but, get into them, I guess. It can be a little harder. I think it's easier with the Zerg because they have this intelligence in the background and all the backstory that we know. For the Tyranids, from what I heard, we basically don't know shit. There are some fleets that came from different directions, so some people think we are surrounded or some stuff like this going on, but for the exact backstory, I think nobody has any clue. And it is actually pretty smart from Games Workshop, I would say, because, if you don't say the law, you can't contradict yourself. And it's in many fan projects so that the fans usually come up with the greatest stories, the greatest conspiracies, the greatest things that could happen. And they're often so much cooler than what actually is going on. And then you have an outcome like, the new Star Wars trilogy where everybody was making these crazy theories, and then it comes to an end and you just think, that's bullshit. So that's pretty smart, I guess. Man, I have so many questions for this race. It's insane. Oh, Cryptman is back.
As Cryptman approached the now dead, sterile world, he discovered that it had been ravaged of all life, even its oceans and atmosphere. Searching for the
Even the
standard
oceans.
Imperial data codex that is secured in such a catastrophic destruction of an
That's
Imperial
interesting.
outpost, what he found was more disturbing than he could have imagined. And seeing the videos and accumulated data of the Xenos assault, Cryptman would immediately leave the planet to communicate and convey the severity and imminent danger posed by this new and horrific alien threat. A horror
did they do
he
with
would
the
subsequently
oceans?
name Tyranids. The planet of Tyran would hold the morbid honour of now becoming their official designation. Inquisitor Cryptman attempted to use his astropath on board to project a vision of his discovery to the Imperium's network, only to discover that this was not possible. Something was preventing the astropath from communicating. This, of course, was the psychic disturbance caused by the Hive fleet. So he instead proceeded to the next nearest Imperial planet.
That's cool, because it also has a parallel with Starcraft, because, you know, the Zerg have a very powerful connection, psychic connection, and they have this hive mind through the overmind, or had this hive mind through the overmind going on until it died. But it's always seeking for that psionic potential and having that as a shield, basically blocking stuff out, and also having these types of attacks be very effective against them because of this kind of connection. But it's funny that they seem like, you know, just, oh, it's hard to say, like a swarm that buzzes out all the noise, you know, it devours all. It is a swarm. It is like a flicker, you know, when you had that old nice flicker on your TV, just a signal that blocks out everything else, devours something, and you can't reach it. It's gone. Basically, as a noise in the background, and you can't really get it. It's a cool thought. It's really well made. I'm really, oh man, I don't know. That is so interesting, but I would like to know so much more. I don't like that there's that little history. I think there's still a lot more that I don't know. But so many people said that there just isn't that much for Tyranids, and I think that's in a way sad, because, oh, man, I'm just, you know, I'm biased here. I'm obviously biased, but still.
Of Thandros in the hopes of establishing communication, only to discover this world had also been ravaged and was now a sterile, dead planet. As is often the case with planets in the Imperium, sometimes entire worlds are lost without anybody even realizing it until years later. Eventually, after successfully establishing communications, he was ordered to proceed to the planet of Macragge, the Space Marine chapter homeworld of the Ultramarines. The alien fleet would be designated Behemoth. Thanks largely to the information gathered from the Tyran data codex, the Astartes and Imperial forces on Macragge were now able to formulate a plan in its defence. The chapter master Marneus Calgar quickly ordered its already immense, powerful defences strengthened. In addition to the existing Imperial ships in orbit, more arrived daily, including massive strike cruisers and Ultramarines battle barges. One thing was for sure, the Tyranid threat would have a far more challenging battle to be fought here than at Tyran and Thandros. It would not be until a month later that the Tyranids would finally begin to assault Macragge. Over 1,000 of the Xenos ships had been present entering the system and had now already ravaged the garden world of Prandium, a former lush paradise, a garden world, a glory to behold, and now a broken wasteland of death.
Man,
even with Cryptman's warnings, the first-hand accounts of the previously lush planet being turned to dead rock, Calgar was taken aback by the devastation of the Jewel of Ultramar.
You know, that maybe sounds bad, but I'm so happy that Blizzard kind of took the Tyranids from 40k and made it their own, because I just, you know, that is just overall one of my favorite all-time sci-fi races. I really like all of the stuff going on, and if 40k wasn't there, there would have been no Zergs. So I'm so glad that it happened. And I really want to get, I think in the future, some kind of big Tyranid model and some kind of big Zerg statue or something like that and put them behind me. Because, you know, they're just both so cool.
Calgar's preparations, he would form 3 massive
So
armies on the
biased.
surface of Macragge, and as the first spores would begin to fall, the powerful Astartes regiments would begin their stand against the alien horrors. Calgar himself had formed the...
Are the landing ships called spores, or are spores really spores? You know? Maybe I got that confused.
The largest of these 3 armies, and would carry out repeated rearguard assaults to wither and crush the Tyranid swarms. But the unrelenting weight and force of the Tyranids could not be suppressed, even with the power of the Ultramarines on their home planet. On the planet's surface, Titans stalked the land, obliterating any alien swarms in their path. The ferocity of the Tyranid assault was something never seen before by the Astartes, and some even saw the colossal Titans be dragged down to the ground before being brutally torn to pieces by the blurred forms of Claw and Chitin. First Company veteran Ultramarines would lay waste to these foul Xenos horrors, but deep inside their bunkers, holding every piece of ground until it could no longer be held, but slowly retreating inside their fortress. The attacking Tyranids would be relentlessly slaughtered like an ocean of alien bodies, exploding, disintegrating and being vaporized by the unwavering but slowly withdrawing Astartes. As the fighting became ever more brutal and desperate, with much of Calgar's defense forces now slaughtered, one of the final battles would be fought on a location known as Cold Steel Ridge. The previously masterful rearguard army of Calgar here would find their match, as the hive mind had learned and adapted to his battle tactics. To compound the situation, the Tyranids would deploy a bioform later classified by the Imperium as a Swarm Lord. This massive creature was one of the final forms to lead assaults on Tyran and Thandros. Using the power of the hive mind, the Tyranids' previously mindless, animalistic, furious assaults now became viciously focused, even tactical. Over the remaining hours, the Swarm Lord would launch attacks again and again, killing scores of auxiliary troops in the most savage and horrific ways imaginable, no doubt in an attempt to horrify and break the human enemy.
I want one
Torn
of
apart,
those.
flayed, penetrated, dissolved, eaten alive, inside or out, the carnage continued on and on until the powerful Astartes began to appear outmatched by this previously mindless horror. Sensing victory, the Swarm Lord along with Tyranid warriors thrust into the fight and engaged Calgar himself. As the Ultramarines circled to aid the Chapter Master, Tyranids lying dead sprung to life, evidently feigning death in a suppressed state by the Swarm Lord so as to launch unexpected attacks on the now compromised Ultramarine defenders. Calgar would be torn and savagely injured by this assault, and the remaining forces were forced into retreating to the battle barge Octavius.
That's smart.
One of, if not the strongest defences of Macragge was its polar fortresses and massive ground weapons that fired high into orbit, obliterating the Xenos raining down onto the planet. The Tyranids, now being highly aware of this concentration of firepower, proceeded to rain down thousands more spores in this polar area. And Tyranids would now begin to appear in even greater numbers, and the fortresses were soon seething with alien horrors. With few options available, Calgar had to trust his planet-side Astartes would handle the tidal wave of Xenos, now engulfing their bunkers. So Calgar would instead turn his attention to the Hive fleet, determined that if Macragge must fall, no other planet would.
Here we go.
Despite the Imperial fleet and the remaining planetary defences engaging the orbiting bioships and destroying hundreds of them en masse, many more remained, and wave after wave would assault the ships in space and the surface of the planet. By the time the Tyranids were deploying their 12th wave of attacks, the orbital defences of Macragge were now essentially annihilated, and so the Tyranids would even further intensify their attacks. Calgar would attempt to seize on this by assaulting their ships in orbit. The Tyranids were spread out in their attempts to envelop the planet, and then they would start to now withdraw their bioships, pull the engaging Imperial space vessels away from Macragge so as to be unable to assist the forces on the ground, especially around its polar bunkers and outposts. What the Tyranids could not have foreseen though was the arrival of the reinforcing battle fleet Tempestus, catching them now in between 2 Imperial fleets. But even so, the Tyranid Hive fleet was far from outmatched, and likely both fleets could have been potentially...
I wonder if there is something out there, outside from the known universe, basically, which is controlling the hive, basically, like a queen. There's usually in a swarm, there's a queen, and the queen controls the hive. In Starcraft, it's the Overminds for the Zergs, later the Queen of Blades. For humanity here, it's not really, but kind of. The Emperor, he guides them through space and stuff like that, gives them impulses. So I'm just thinking maybe there is something like the Emperor or the Overmind for the Tyranids, outside of the universe, reaching into it, sending the fleet, basically some kind of super queen empress, if you say it like that, that would be, and that would be cool. I know a lot of people like it for the Tyranids more because they don't have some power that controls them. It's basically the instinct. It's the primal nature. But maybe there is something we are just not aware of. Who knows? Who knows?
Destroyed were it not for the supreme sacrifice of the mammoth Emperor-class battleship Dominus Astra. It would plough straight into the heart of the Hive fleet and sacrifice itself by detonating its warp drives, subsequently creating a warp vortex and dragging itself and the entire Tyranid fleet into total oblivion.
Well,
Calgar's remaining forces rounded to return to Macragge and save the few, if any, Astartes forces that had managed to hold out in overwhelmed polar fortresses. Contact with the First Company veterans had now long been lost as the Tyranids overran the polar outpost, and Calgar, concerned by this, deployed the 3rd and 7th Companies by drop pod to the polar regions. As the Marines burst from their pod deployments, the scenes that met them were beyond belief. Hundreds of thousands of shredded and compounded Tyranid bodies lay piled as far as could be seen, and huge craters existed where plasma weapons and Titan reactors had gone critical, pocketing the surface of the land. Linking up quickly with any surface survivors, they pushed down into the depths of the outposts, clearing any Xenos they encountered. The 3rd Company, though, on landing was far less successful and came under heavy attack as soon as they made planetfall. Many hundreds of Tyranids sprang from the dark outpost entrances to engage them, but heavy fire from the Marines and Thunderhawk gunships overhead crushed them and drove them back into the darkness of the reinforced outposts. On entering the darkened corridors of the outpost as the 7th Company had done, the 3rd began to notice how walls and structural elements were dripping with mucus, and it seemed that in many places solid material appeared to be breaking down. They would lay down heavy flame units through the corridors to clear their advances, slowly progressing deeper into the bunkers. As the 3rd Company continued to burn their way into the darkness, every step crushing alien chitin and acidic blood splashing everywhere, they slowly entered the deepest areas of the bunkered outposts in the polar region. And it was here that they would finally find the last remaining 1st Company veterans.
I like that. This is always a recurring theme, that there is this, those spores, whatever it is, covering walls and infecting, basically making their nest, and then they have to always cleanse it with fire. It's such a nice touch, and it goes from the original Alien universe over the Tyranids to the Zerg, all the cool races alike, man. I just like that kind of stuff. I don't know why, it's kind of creepy, it's kind of fucked up, but I always like them. The designs, they're so...
Single circle of Space Marines in Terminator armor laying slumped back to back, having been savagely ended by the Xenos horrors. There were no First Company Ultramarines remaining. They had been killed to the last man.
Wow. Shit. Poor Marines, man. Didn't deserve this.
After the nightmare that was the battle for their chapter world, they faced the huge task of rebuilding their chapter, notably the veteran First Company, which had been so brutally obliterated. This task would be bequeathed to Chaplain Cassius, who would request to Calgar that the new First Company veterans be drawn from the ranks of those who had survived the tyrannic assault, as only they could understand this threat and the consequences of a tyrannic war. These elite veterans make up the now reformed First Company of the Ultramarines. The battle for Macragge is a bittersweet victory for the Ultramarines, having been successful against such a horrific enemy, but also suffering such devastating losses.
Man?
The names of their fallen brothers are commemorated each year, and their sacrifices remembered throughout the Ultramar system. And so the Tyranids would not be seen for over 200 years, until without warning in 993 of Millennium 41, a new invasion fleet would appear. Hive Fleet Kraken, which would now engage with simultaneous attacks on planets throughout the system. Eventually this assault would also be repelled, but the Tyranids would again be detected by Inquisitor Kryptman in 997 of Millennium 41, only 4 years later. Kryptman was able, by burning out Astropaths, to discern this new fleet Leviathan's intended course of attack through its targeted system. But despite some initial defensive successes, Kryptman would order the act of Exterminatus on the world of Cordelis, the next planet on the Tyranids' path, so as to reduce their ability to increase their biomass. Despite Imperial Navy objections, Kryptman would succeed in carrying out his Exterminatus to the planet and its population with virus bombs. This catastrophic level of civilian deaths and his lies to the Ultramarines would enrage them and other Imperial forces.
Jeez.
Worse would be to come though when Kryptman would order the single largest self-inflicted atrocity in Imperial history, when he would order a system-wide scorched earth tactic by using Exterminatus on every planet within the reach of Hive Fleet Leviathan, so as to effectively starve them of biomatter. He would later, due to these actions, be denounced as a traitor to the Imperium and Carta Externis by his fellow Inquisitors.
That is scorched earth policy to the max. Kryptman has really seen some shit. I respect that. I kind of respect that. But wow, that is rough. Is he a very important, figure in the history of humanity? Or is he just, a little bit of side figure? Because he seems very important here, but I don't know him throughout the history, how important he is, how special. But man, that guy really has seen and done some shit.
But Kryptman still held loyal allies within the Astartes' Death Watch, and the final fate of Hive Fleet Leviathan was far from over. The Tyranids and their ongoing tyrannic wars would change the Imperium forever, but there are many who believe that their invasions of the galaxy have only just begun. Further examination of Imperial records after the tyrannic wars had begun revealed disturbing facts. Facts that suggest the Tyranids had been around for a much longer period of time, and that predatory creatures like the Katashan Devil and Fenrisian Kraken are actually ancient descendants of Tyranid hive fleets, perhaps long since abandoned or forgotten by the Hive.
Don't know what they are.
Records of the Ordo Xenos of the Inquisition have suggested Tyranid contact as far back as Millennium 35. Bioships of Tyranid configuration were also discovered on an ice planet after Imperial Guard was sent to deal with an orc threat there. Tyranids would burst out attacking the guardsmen sent, but they could not understand how this was possible, as no Tyranid ships were in orbit of the planet. Eventually
Classic
they realized
alien?
As long ago as 7,000 years, a full Tyranid hive ship had crashed into the planet.
And I don't know which alien movie was it. Was it Alien or Aliens? Where the chip is frozen in the ice deep down under. And man, that stuff. I love that shit. I love it. That's a classic. That's a classic. I'm pretty happy to see that here. That's cool. That's cool. That's a classic.
And remained dormant ever since. The prospect of it reanimating and sending out psychic distress calls is something that they could not allow to happen. Eventually, the Imperial forces are able to destroy the hive ship by enabling massive volcanic eruptions which consume and destroy the trapped ship and all its horrific inhabitants. But these events suggested that the Tyranids had been present even earlier than Millennium 45, perhaps anything longer than even 1,000 years prior, and it also penetrated further into Imperial space than was previously thought. The prospect of other deliberately hidden or preemptively placed hive ships was a greatly concerning realization. But it's also possible that these earlier fleets were defeated and repelled by another race like the Eldar. The Tyranids are one of the most severe threats to not just the Imperium, but the entire galaxy, and even though they have wrought terrible destruction through the first fleets that have appeared, a much worse possibility exists, that so far the Tyranid hive fleets are just initial tendrils. They are really scouting parties of a much larger and exponentially more dangerous main fleet, as yet unseen, still travelling through the void toward the Milky Way.
You know, I liked it. It's like the 40k lore, you know, the Starcraft lore, you basically have everything, but it is easy because it's based in the game, and it's this game, some books, and a little side content here or there, but it's mainly the game. The lore is pretty solved, you know, it is pretty easy to understand. It is like a very light version of a small portion of 40k lore, but 40k has an ongoing lore. It is unsolved. You can make up your own fan theories. It is crazy shit out there. Also, I think I like the first contact of the 40k universe more than the first contact in the Starcraft universe, where the Overmind found the humans, approached them over 60 years, I think, and then the war broke out. What I liked more is what played out, you know, because then Kerrigan played the humans out against the Protoss to kill their... Yeah, basically, it doesn't matter, you know. A lot of people don't even know that and don't care for StarCraft, so doesn't matter. I think this first contact wins. What I kind of would wish, you know, would be a mix of the Zerg, or yeah, a combination of the Zerg and the Tyranids, kind of. But yeah, we will get to that in my
Galaxy.
Not really, though. So this was the first contact and the Medal of Macragge. I really enjoyed it. I think it's cool. I didn't learn as much about the Tyranids, but there's still a lot more videos out there. I can watch a ton more. It showed me very clearly how the first contact happened, what went down, theories out there, you know, what could happen in the future, what is going on, and some of the basics, basically. Also, like I said, I like this first contact more. StarCraft's first contact was a little more, you know, humanity wasn't even prepared. They basically got completely fucked over and caught in a three-way war, which they were basically the weakest overall in. They had no chance at all, so while humanity here was pretty not ready, but they were very far advanced, very heavy war technology. They also won. Heavy loss on their side, but they won. So that's big. But for what I said earlier, what I kind of would wish for would be, you know, a mix of the Zergs and Tyranids and put into the 40k universe. I like the StarCraft universe, but it is, you know, basically 80 to 90% for me are the Zerg. And I didn't like the ending of StarCraft. It was, you know, yeah, we kind of had to finish it, and it was all... The lore in the background was cool. There was sick stuff going on, but I think stuff like the Queen of Blades and the Zerg and the Overmind, all of that could have really, really profited from the very much darker side of 40k. I really like the, you know, grimdark, the very bizarre, crazy, and brutal stuff that is going in 40k. It's so badass, and I think that would have fit the Zerg so well with, you know, ripping a lot more of human qualities from the Queen of Blades, removing that, making her, you know, more just wild, brutal, angry, more Zerg-like than human. She had way too much, you know, stuff going on with Reyna and all of that shit. That was the weak part for me in the story. The cool part was the Zerg part, and they didn't focus on that, so Sad. Sad, it is what it is, but man, I really enjoyed the Tyranids, especially the visuals and, all the theories behind them, how they fought against humanity. Like I said, I didn't have too much insight, but I liked it. I liked it a lot. I like the Tyranids. How could I hate them, dude? I'm the biggest Zerg simp there is, so I can't hate the Tyranids. I know a lot of people didn't want to hear this with, my mix and pushing the Zerg into the 40k. I know a lot of people don't like that, but it is just my feelings that that's how it is, and it will be always like that. So that's it for now. I will look at a lot more stuff about the Tyranids, and there's still so much 40k to go through. I just am scratching the surface, and there's so much more. So we will see a lot more in the future, but that's it for now, and I'm out. Bye.